Floyd Sweet was one of the earliest inventors that I can remember studying. There were others back in the early days as well. Stan Deyo brought out some videos about anti-gravity craft and stuff like that. They were pretty cool. But Floyd Sweet held my attention for the longest. It was the smallest device for the greatest output, and it was just elegant. You could just tell that Floyd Sweet knew what he was doing, whether that information have come from somewhere else or not. He knew what he was doing, had possibly prior knowledge of some information, and we know for sure that he had prior knowledge of some of the Paul Raymond Jensen stuff. We have information on that in the form of written text that apparently came from Floyd Sweet. Now, this information was given to me anonymously by a very kind person, so I want to throw a thanks out to that person. The information was contained in this document, Magnetic Resonance by Floyd A. Sweet. It's interesting to note that magnetic resonance is a term that Don Smith used, and various other places has been used as well. Magnetic resonance refers to the actual electrons being in resonance within the wire itself. Remembering that copper is a conductor, conductors obviously conduct, and that is the whole point of electrical energy. And when a conductor conducts, it normally would at least have current flowing, and current indicates charge moving at a rate, and that rate used to be defined of and has changed a couple of times as 6.24 times 10 to the 18th electrons per second past a point P. Now, where is it? There is a thing in here where it does actually state so here it is here. This is the EPR, electron paramagnetic resonance is EPR, and that's measured to be at about 2.8 H MC, which is about 2.8 gigahertz, depending on the magnetic field that is surrounded, or at least the state at which the electrons have been excited. Again, Floyd Sweet has referenced the Jensen machine. The Jensen machine is somewhat vague. Paul Raymond Jensen did write a letter with some information on it, but there's really not much to go on. It's a little bit vague. But we know that Floyd Sweet did study it. Floyd Sweet talks about AM/FM modulation. Here, basically what he's referring to is what you would deem as an antenna. So basically this is sort of referring to antenna theory without actually going into too much information. And what he's sort of telling you here is that the mismatched or matched antenna will create standing waves, and that's what it's about. This is what this whole field is about. It's about waves, standing waves, the interactions between these waves, and how they respond after a standing wave has occurred. And referring to my last video, what we're looking at doing here, again, paramagnetic resonance. This is something that's achieved at a certain frequency, but as seen here, H is the strength of the magnetic field, so you need a certain strength of magnetic field to be able to achieve that resonance at 2.8 gigahertz up the top there. And this is electron. This is all about the electron. Okay, what we've got to realize is the electron is a small magnet, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to change the state of the electron. We're trying to get as many electrons excited and ready to go as we can. And obviously old school, what we're trying to do is we're trying to fire as many electrons down a wire as possible. And many times we've heard references to this from Don Smith to Floyd Sweet that we've sort of studied in the past. It's all about getting the electrons moving. Don Smith actually said,
the devices which I have invented, which there are a number of them, they all actually accelerate electrons. Okay. They're electron accelerators.
Okay, and moving on, so down here we're talking about the capacitive reactance and stuff of the line, phase angle, theta will be leading, all that sort of thing. Now, this is something that we've sort of talked about before on the forum. Frequency of resonance is half pi square root LC. This is LC resonance and tank resonance. Okay, so this is something that essentially is not magnetic resonance. This is not magnetic resonance as such. This is just simple tank resonance. This is a capacitive inductor resonance, which does not refer to magnetic resonance. Magnetic resonance can be brought about by using these techniques, obviously, but at the end of the day, this is not magnetic resonance themselves. Magnetic resonance is where we've got the slapping together of the waves. This is from partnered output coil 1 conduction to partnered output coil 2 conduction within a certain time frame and at a certain magnetic strength, if you like. So we need a certain amount of magnetic field to be able to bring this about, at least in a decent form. You know, you can see these effects, but sometimes they may not be above unity, sometimes they might be below unity still, and you might still see these effects. So you need to work on it with a little bit of fiddling. Okay, so moving on. Now this is an area that I talked about also in my last video. I don't fully understand this, but the research that I have done is this is the spin. So -1/2 will be a spin, half will be a spin, again -1/2 will be a spin, and then up here half will be a spin again. Content, or at least the context, I should say, is talking about electrons, electroparamagnetic resonance, which is, or electron, I should say, paramagnetic resonance. Now the electrons themselves have a state, and the state can be changed depending on how much external magnetic field that they are exposed to. So if, for example, if the electron is in a, say a -1/2, if that's the state that it's already in, what we can do is expose that electron to a high yield magnetic field, and then at a certain point this will all of a sudden flip, and it flips up to this one up here, and then it becomes, instead of -1/2, it becomes 1/2. So it changes its state, and you can see by the arrows here, all these arrows will change state. So say for example this one here, 1/2 will actually stay 1/2 no matter how much magnetic field it's exposed to. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it depends on the polarity of the magnetic field as well. Okay, so you can see here, look, pop to my websites. These websites are filled with information. There's information in these websites that you just can't find anywhere else unless it's been copied from us. Tons and tons and tons of information. I don't mind if anyone wants to copy the information. I don't mind at all. But please reference us. You know, we've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money trying to get this up for everybody out there to see. This is just Floyd Sweet's page. This is just one little bit of information. And again, I've studied Floyd Sweet for a long time. Spent a lot of money, huge amount of money, many thousands of dollars investigating magnet conditioning. And in the end, to find out that it was just a huge hoax, it was a little bit disappointing. You know, I've been led down a rabbit hole, and to be honest, it was disappointing to find out that, you know, a few lies had sort of cost me so much money. But anyway, we're out the other end now. Talking about that, look, visit our websites, become familiar with them, use them. There's tons of information there, some much better than others. Again, some information on our websites you won't find anywhere else. It's just for us only. Akula, some of his information. Ruslan, S-Reason. S-Reason was a YouTube user of SR193. Tons of information there. You might need to translate it to English if you need to. This man here, very intelligent, knows what he's doing, shared a lot of information, tons of information there. So please visit the websites, become familiar with it. Another one of my heroes, Andrei Malenchenko. This man is a true humanitarian. He shared his information, got shot down by people, proved with some devices that ran themselves, which were called the G-LED, small unit. I'll show you. This is some of his experimentation. G-LED you'll be familiar with. This is something that Akula replicated and showed, and he sort of made it famous for himself, but as far as I'm aware, he never gave Andrei Malenchenko any credit whatsoever, and he should have. Tons of information. This is another good document. Please study that if you can. Lots of information there. Some images from his old websites that he took down. Hope he doesn't mind that as well. So yeah, so look, visit the websites, become familiar with them. First page, you'll know this inside out if you're a forum member. This is something that I like to share with people. There is, as we find, only three of the creations as given: matter, force, and mind. So what do we got? We got matter, force, and mind. 1, 2, 3. Seems to me that number 3 is everywhere. Oh look, 1, 2, 3. 3 coils. Sorry, being a bit sarcastic or facetious. You get the idea. How mass energy equivalence. Okay, so this is Einstein's mass equals mc squared. Not actually Einstein's. Again, this is a debate that's been raging for ages. Einstein made it famous. Apparently it was already in the literature by at least 1 or even 2 people before him. And again, we've got to think of the electrons. So down at the electron level, charge as such flows through the wire. The insulation is a barrier.
Go back to the shadow. You shall not pass!
Charge cannot pass. So without insulation, our conductors would basically short circuit if they weren't wound properly. It'd be very hard to use. So insulation is a critical point. Conduction is a critical point. The timing of the conduction is also a critical point. Again, paramagnetic resonance or electron magnetic resonance is the key. Magnetic resonance, which was called or deemed, by Floyd Sweet, by Don Smith, by many others as well. You've got to find that resonance point, and you will find it's probably at least a harmonic or a subharmonic of of the EPR, most likely, at least anyway, or close to. Again, action, reaction, and counter-reaction. So action is your input. Reaction is your first coil's reaction to the action, so equal and opposite. Counter-reaction. Okay, counter-reaction, very important. Counter-reaction is the third coil kicking in, which counter-reacts the reaction, so counter-reaction. So we're countering the reaction, and obviously because we're countering the reaction, we're assisting the action. Okay, so that there's a reason that I've put these things up. Again, visit our website, tons of information, become familiar with them, become a member of our forum. Look, honestly, if you want to be part of something better, come and visit our forum. We are the best out there, without a doubt. Now, when you come and visit, if you're not a contributor of information, I would like to ask, please support us. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to make these videos, put information up on the website, keep the website running. We've had some very serious issues of whether it be attacks, I can't prove it, but we've had attempts to take down the website for sometimes days at a time. So please support us. It takes a lot of work to keep all this going, either a PayPal donation or a Patreon donation. It's up to you. PayPal's probably easier, it doesn't cost as much. Patreon, it's a little bit on the expensive side to even do anything. Anyway, please, if you could, that would be fantastic. These videos do take time, as I say. You've got to remember all this information that's up there is, most of it's unique. Most of it you won't find anywhere else. It takes a lot of effort to make sure that the right information is getting to your hands. And this is all through years and years and years of study, experiment, obviously working through trying to stick by science. Science is my friend. I don't dispute science. I think there's some areas in science that need a lot of work, and there's some scientists that need a lot of work, or at least the bodies of scientists that make decisions need a lot of work. But at the end of the day, our science is mostly right in most areas. We just have to work on it a little bit more to get it better. So I try to stick by science, try to make sure that what I share is true and correct. I'm not always right, but most of the time I'm pretty close to it. In fact, a question was asked on the forum by Vajira. Good man, Vajira, you're keeping an eye on me and making sure I'm getting the right information out. The question was asked above here, and I've misread it. I apologize. How can we maintain the voltage in a resonant tank circuit at zero? This is something that I misinterpreted, and I have used H-bridges for a long time. Excuse me. So basically what I replied with was H-bridges using a 50% DC chopped. So positive voltage, turn off, and then a negative voltage, and then turn off, and then a positive voltage, and then turn off. T is the time axis again. Y-axis is the voltage amplitude, negative or positive. And most of the time, to get a resonant tank circuit resonant, you would use a 50% duty cycle. So I do apologize, I misinterpreted the question. So what we did is we went through, and Vajira said, hey, hang on a minute, 33%, 33%, 33%. Otherwise 50%, it wouldn't work. And he's quite correct. This is referring to Graham Gunderson's machine. The voltage here is 1/3. Obviously from off time, on to off again, and then from off to on, off again, and this period here is an off time. And we've gone through on the forum about the off time. The off time is a requirement, and if you read the pages, you'll find out why that is. So 33%, 33%, 33%, or 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 3/3 make a whole. So this is a whole cycle from here to here. Something else, during the off time, the current actually increases in amplitude. Now, if you look at Graham-Gunderson's circuit, it doesn't make a lot of sense on the input. Again, what we've sort of talked about in the past is how to support current. Current is effectively a mass. Electron has mass. Anything that has charge and a magnetic field as a result is considered to have mass in most instances. I don't know of one that's not. So every time you have a current, it's a mass. Floyd Sweet talked about supporting mass, and we've shown experiments on the forum that you have to support the mass. Supporting the mass means that anytime there's a current in a coil, you have to have an equal and opposite current. Okay, so say for example here at the off time of the voltage, and this is where the H bridge is switched off. If there was no supporting the current would just fall, and it might fall in a slightly curved fashion like that. So you would see a fall in the current, but we're not seeing a fall in the current. And the reason we're not seeing a fall in the current, the reason we're actually seeing an increase in amplitude of the current, is because not shown on this plot is the output current actually supporting this mass. It's equal and it's opposite, and what it's doing is it's supporting the mass. So by having an equal and opposite, it pumps. So it's a little bit like the magnet being shot down the railgun, a video that I've shown on my previous videos. There's two magnetic fields, or actually three magnetic fields involved, two on each side, one magnet in the middle, and because of the arrangement of the magnetic fields, the placement of the magnet, you just need to pop it at the top, and then all of a sudden it'll shoot through. So the magnet's being accelerated. And again, this is the same with electrons. Remember, electrons have a magnetic field, they have spin or curl, and as a result of the magnetic field, all it needs is just a slight movement, and once they start moving, you can accelerate them. And accelerating them is basically bucking coils, and that's how that's done, and the timed actions, if you like, of the bucking coils. So you can accelerate charge, as Don Smith told us before. So that's the supporting of the mass. And you can read that in Floyd Sweet's Nothing is Something. He goes into a very short paragraph. Again, we've talked about it on the forum. Supporting of mass is the supporting of current. Floyd Sweet didn't say that specifically, but that's sort of what he was leading to, I believe, without sort of saying too much and letting too much out. Again, if we don't support the current, it'll just fall to zero as quickly as it possibly can, and remembering the change in current produces a voltage. So as the magnetic field is moving down, we would also see a change in voltage, and it would be linear, well, not linear, but a decrease in voltage the same. Okay, so I'm probably just going to keep this video short. Again, this is just what we're covering in these posts. Again, come and be part of something better. We are way in advance of all the other forums out there. The information we're sharing is unique, it is powerful, and if you can understand it, if you want to understand it, you will have information that other people just don't have. Here, many generations pass. Yep, look, go and read the quote. I love that quote. It's awesome. That's why it's there. Again,
please support us if you can. Tons of information. We have put links to information, cross-referenced, referenced, the whole lot. So what you can see is information that's not just in one machine, but in all the machines. So we've tied all the gaps together. We've made sure that all the information that we're presenting is solid and true and to the best of our ability as accurate as possible.